It's really important to continue strength training during the season is you helped her recover faster. You flush out that soreness. It helps any swelling. The way I say it to my athletes is it brings in the groceries and takes out the garbage and all your joints. Submax loads, lifting, staying strong. It helps with recovery.
Dave, welcome back to the Strong Female Athlete Podcast.
Thank you for having me again. Love it.
We have this discussion every year about the importance of in-season training. So as we are recording this, you and I have both wrapped up our off-season speed, strength, and conditioning programs for the summer. It is now middle of August, so a lot of our athletes are maybe in preseason, just finished or survived it is probably
Mhm.
the better way to put it.
Right.
Thank goodness. So now everyone's in season. And I think this is a time of year where a lot of people are overwhelmed with busy sports schedules picking up, school also starting. And I think a lot of parents are concerned, well, how do we fit strength training into this busy time so that our young girls stay healthy while also continuing to improve speed and strength? Because it is so important to continue. And maybe we can just touch on that first. Why is it so important athletes don't just train for 2 months in the summer and then peace out for the other 10 months of the year?
Right. Seems as if little by little this paradigm is changing, going from just what you just said. All right, I had, June and July basically or whatever to train in the summer, even if it were 3 months, and now I'm all done. It's starting to change because there is more information out there, and kudos to you because you keep bringing quality, truthful information to the general public in terms of what it does take to get to the next level on a consistent basis. But it's so important because, well, for one, and this is a Mike Boyle quote, I believe, the easiest way to get stronger in the off season is not to get weak in during the season. So if you think of it as everything is a cycle and the way that you train changes, but you don't stop training, like you never stop training. That's really important because you'll break the cycle and you literally if an athlete stops training, you know this in the beginning of the season, by the end of the season, they're essentially starting over, right? And they might even now they have to play a little bit of catch up. Okay, that's number one. So we're always thinking about as professionals, okay, we did our job, we continue to do our job with these kids. Now, what does next year look like? We're already planning that far ahead. And then the year after that, because everything builds upon itself. Number two, if it's done correctly and you continue to train, including strength train during the season, they're at their best when it counts the most, which is at the end of the season where hopefully they have a playoff berth and they need to be peaking for their sport at that point, not during tryouts, right? And we just talked about that offline a little bit,
Or
but it's a
preseason?
constant ramp up. And then at the end of say a fall soccer season, whenever that season ends, late October, early November, if they go far enough into the playoffs, now they have some recovery time, some time to really focus on recovery, regeneration, and that cycle starts all over again, but not from scratch because they didn't lose out. Now we're just trying to, work out any compensatory movement patterns that they develop because we get banged up. Like sports in general destroy bodies without any injuries. So, how do we get them back to moving as proficiently and efficiently as quickly as we can in the off season? It depends on what they do during the season. So we talked about the cyclical nature, like don't take time off because then you're starting from scratch or you're behind. And during the season, peaking at the right time. And a third thing I'll add, which maybe should have been number one, is injury reduction. How can we lessen the likelihood of an injury, barring I got taken out from the side and I hurt my knee or I got a kid stepped on my ankle and I sprained my ankle. Whatever it is, the stuff we can't control. There are so many controllables that we can work on during the season, which includes things like strength training, movement proficiency. And I use that word, and a lot of my maybe parents or kids don't know what that means. Like, how efficiently, how well are you moving? Because if you move well, the way that that comes out on the field is faster, stronger, more endurance, right? If you're inefficient, if you don't move well, everything you do takes more effort. And those are the kids that we find sometimes we sign them on mid-season because it's like no matter what they do, they feel like they still feel like they're out of shape. Like I'm always tired. At the end of the games, I'm gassed. Like, and it's because they either stopped or they didn't do the right things heading into it. So those would be my big three, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot more. But those would be my main points as to why it's so important. And if for nothing else, injury reduction, like lessen the likelihood of something happening.
Yeah, I would say strength is the main one that these girls need to be continuing because
Mhm,
that stop in training, strength will go fast. I'd say strength and speed. Speed goes even faster.
mhm,
Soon as they stop getting like a quick plyometric stimulus or an all out 30-yard sprint stimulus, then they're going to get detrained in those explosive efforts. And the truth
mhm,
is, coaches don't really do speed at practice. Would I like them to do more of it? Yes, but we can't expect coaches to do it. They're too busy doing small sided games and technical because that's their job, that's the scope of their practice. So I think speed is another one I would add, Dave, because you talked about how girls with continued strength training are moving better at the end of the season. They're healthier, they're less fatigued, they can recover quicker. But I've seen girls who have kept that in season speed. Not only are they healthier because speed really works the hamstrings well, they are faster than their teammates at the end of the season, and everyone else is slowing down because
mhm,
they have detrained these explosive efforts and they're only training what's going on in practice, which is more of the aerobic and the conditioning work from the
mhm.
scrimmages and small sided games. Hey guys, just want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Simply Faster, and one of my favorite speed timing systems from them, the Free Lap. I use it for my own sprint training as well as for my athletes, and they love it. It's super easy to set up, you can take it to the field on your own, and you can get accurate speed times to track your progress. Check the Free Lap link in the caption below to start adding timing into your speed sessions. If you know me, you know I love my Free Lap. If you're serious about speed, it's time to start timing.
I'm so glad you said that, and I'm like, "Oh, how did I forget speed?" I double down on speed depending on the athlete. So it's 2 ways, you guys. So, I'll explain it this way. If it's a starter, I go back to movement proficiency and efficiency because with fatigue, let's say that, we don't like this, but sometimes, especially in high school, like, it'll be 3 games in a week. Right? And your body's just broken down. What happens is the body starts to compensate because maybe her hamstrings are tight. So there's a little bit of compensation there. And then it's a it's a it's a cascading thing. It gets worse and worse and worse. So now what happens is the mechanics of how she's sprinting, how she's changing direction, how she's decelerating changes. So what I double down on with my starters in terms of speed and agility work is the skill. It's mechanics, right? And it's max effort with a ton of rest, a low volume, and we'll talk about that a little bit in terms of, at the end by the end of this, how much to do. Lower volume. We're not doing, 10 hundreds, 10 200s. It might be 6 10-yard sprints, so I can really see what they're doing under strain, and full rest in between, talking about what needs to be tweaked a little bit so it's more efficient. Now, if it's a non-starter, if it's someone who's coming off the bench, and especially if it's someone that's getting limited minutes, what we just talked about, including speed, is even more important because they're getting virtually no training, right? If you think about, your starters get all the reps. Once you've gone through a warm up and any sprint drills that the coach might or might not have you do to begin practice, it depends on their coaching philosophy and their ability. Typically, your bench players in most scenarios are getting deconditioned throughout the season. They're not getting enough work. So those kids, in terms of speed and agility, I'll literally double down. I'll make sure they're in shape as close to as a starter as we can get them. Knowing this, and you guys need to know this, the only way to really get in game shape once you've ramped up to it is to play games, right? Like, it's really hard to replicate the intensity and everything that happens in a game, but we're going to get you as close to ready to go as possible, which also helps your team, right? If one of your starters goes down or is sick or whatever, and you have to step up, we want you to do as well, if not better, than the starter did for you and your team. So those are the two ways that I approach it, Eric. I don't know if you have, another thought on that or something that you've done that's been successful for your athletes.
I would agree. I think the playing time definitely plays a role in adjusting the program based on the athlete.
Mm,
Overall, I'd say everyone is doing lower volume than the off season, but if someone's absolutely not seeing the field and not getting minutes, then they're kind of on an off-season plan because like
mhm,
you said, they're just not getting those reps in, and if
mhm,
coach pulls them in and says, "Hey, you need to go in tomorrow," they need to be prepared for that load, and it can't just be this huge spike because that's when injury can happen too for those players who don't play as much. But yeah, I would say overall for the starters and girls who play a lot, super low rep for any in season work, both speed and strength. And a good rule of thumb is just asking your athletes, "Hey, how do you feel after one of my in season workouts?" And it should never be like, "I'm so fatigued. I'm not ready to go to practice." That's not what you want. It should be, "I'm energized. I feel good. I feel like my movement is smooth. I feel fast and twitchy." And it shouldn't be them being completely exhausted. So there's a way to go about in season. It doesn't have to be scary. I know parents get scared. Oh, are we doing too much? Are we overusing them? You just have to have someone who understands set and rep prescription, exercise selection for in season. And I
mhm.
wanted to
Great,
ask you for your strength work, what are some of the set and rep ranges that you are hanging out in?
great question. And I want to preface this by saying you'll appreciate this because you and I talk offline about these kind of things all the time. Parents, what you'll see, and kids, what you see on social media, 99 times out of 100 is what you should not be doing at any time during the year, but especially during the school year. So if you just, we'll give you some tips on what to do, but that's not it because you'll see these high intensity, high volume workouts. The grind never stops, no days off, in season grind that will literally, burnout is just on the other side of that, if not injury. So I want to protect you against that. Don't get your information off of TikTok and Instagram in terms of like, just some wild, crazy workout that you see a pro athlete doing and they were doing it in the off season, but now that coach is promoting it like this is what you should be doing in the in season and it's a pro. All right, I could go off on a tangent there. My rep range is typically what I do is I'll do like an A-B and a A1, A2, A B1, B2 for my strength and conditioning. So it'll be a primary lift, an ancillary lift, or a secondary lift. And depending on what it is, it's anywhere from 2 to 8 reps, but we start high. So if it's a deadlift, we'll start with 6. That's their warm-up set. It's at a moderate rate. It's never max. It's always sub-max with me. And what I use is a rate of perceived exertion, and they have to track that as well because it's also relative to the day. If they're seeing me on a Monday and they had 3 games last week, and they lost the game on Friday, and coach crushed them in practice on Saturday because that coach was pissed off. Monday when they come in and they're like, I am gassed, I can't even feel my legs, things get adjusted. That's the art of what we do, the art and science of what we do. But it depends on the exercise too. So if it's a deadlift, it'd be 6 reps, moderate. It might be lighter, or we might keep it there if they're really, really gassed. If they feel pretty good, we'll do maybe 2 sets of 6, a set of 4, and a set of 4. If they're feeling really great, we'll go maybe 6, 4, 4, 2. But even the 2 reps, it's not a 2 rep max. It's a 2 rep scale of 1 to 10. I'm at about an 8. And, we phrase it different ways with our athletes. If they say something was a 5 and they did 6 reps, I'm like, great. That means you probably had at least 6 more reps in you. And they're like, yeah, easily. I'm like, great. When they're at an 8, they might have 2 or 3 reps more before they're like, yeah, I'm like really pushing. Here's the crazy thing with that rep scheme. And we'll do 4 sets of our primary lift. Anything that's like ancillary or secondary, it's usually 3. And the same thing with B1 and B2. And it's usually as multi-joint as we can get after we've done like some unilateral single leg stuff, all the injury reduction stuff, all the mobility activation. This is purely just lifting. And here's the crazy thing, and I put this in my notes before this episode. Everyone thinks, oh, we're just gonna try to maintain strength over the season. Even with this rep scheme and this concept of not pushing to like max reps. You've seen this, you see it every season. They get stronger. And how do I know that? My kids have to track everything they're doing. They track their rate of perceived exertion scale 1 to 10. So let's say it's a deadlift. First set was 6 reps at 95 pounds. Rate of perceived exertion was a 4. Awesome, great warm up set. Now we have a conversation and we decide what the next set is, and the next set, and the next set. So, that being said, I get to look at their program chart at the end of the season. The numbers don't lie. They're doing more weight with the same rate of perceived exertion. Okay, so let's use that example. 95 pounds for the first set felt like a 4, I think I said. Now, at the end of the season, that 95 pounds for a set of 6 feels like a 2. It's easier. Why? They became stronger. Now then, by the time they get to 4 or 2 reps on their last set, what felt like an 8 at maybe 130 pounds is now 145 or 150 pounds. They're literally stronger by the end of the season. Now I'm just using arbitrary numbers, you guys, so don't go back and say, okay, Coach Dave said I have to load the bar with 95 pounds. Everybody's different. Some kids I start with 65 pounds, 55 pounds. It just depends. That was an example. So I love using examples, Erica, because, and I hope this works for you guys. It adds a lot of clarity, or it kind of tells a story, and people start to really understand what we're talking about. Because you and I could talk set and rep schemes and loading, and to a lot of people, it's Greek. It's like I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I think you make such a good point that you'll have those set and rep schemes and intensities pre-planned out, but it can change based on how they walk into the gym that day and how they're feeling. And I think RPE, ratings of perceived exertion, is the best free way to track training load and intensity. And I recommend athletes get used to doing it and parents understand where your athlete's at. But yeah, if you have an athlete coming in and they're saying, oh, well, I'm fatigued and totally sore, and this deadlift was like a 9 out of 10 today, then you're doing too much in the gym. And we don't want our athletes to be in a chronic state of fatigue because that also can lead to injury. So I love
Right.
that point, Dave, that you're checking in with them. It should be an ongoing conversation every time they come into the gym. And I had a girl on Wednesday this week. She ran the beep test on Tuesday, which I didn't know. So Wednesday I had planned, okay, we're going to do a timed 30-yard sprint and do max
Mhm.
effort speed work. We usually just do one or two during in season workouts. And as soon as she came in and said, "Oh my gosh, my hamstrings are so sore. We did the beep test yesterday. I got the best score on the team," which means she really emptied the tank and pushed it.
Mhm.
I was like, "Yeah, we're going to do sub max work today." And all we did, like you said, was just clean up like speed mechanics. We did more mechanics work, low impact, no central nervous system fatigue. And I just
Mhm.
didn't want to make the soreness worse because, again, that's where we go into high injury risk territory with these in season workouts. But next week, when she doesn't have a beep test under her belt and she comes in fresh, yeah, we'll do our one max effort
Mhm.
sprint and we'll keep it moving. But I think sometimes you're right. You just really do have to adjust if an athlete is extremely fatigued.
Another important point there that Erica just said, um, which I wanna come back to, is the other thing that is great about what you did and what's really important to continue strength training during the season is you helped her recover faster with strength training. It's guys, it's science. You flush out that soreness. It helps any swelling kind of pull out. I always call it, the way I say it to my athletes is, it brings in the groceries and takes out the garbage and all your joints. Submax loads, lifting, staying strong, it helps with recovery. The paradigm with most people is, I'm so sore, I can't lift today. But communicate with your coach like this athlete did with Erica. So then Erica could say, okay, we're going even a little bit more submax. We're going to work on technique. And I guarantee you, when she left, she felt better than when she walked in the door. And what's even better than that is the next day, she was ready to rock and roll. Where
Mhm.
most of her teammates were probably, if they weren't still sore, their legs felt heavy, tired, tight. And then what happens? It goes back to what I've already talked about. They compensate, they move differently, and then it starts this downward spiral. Everything seems harder. And once you start that downward spiral, it's really tough to put on the brakes unless you're doing the right thing. So I just wanted to go back to that because that was a really important point that you mentioned. But the caveat of it also helps with recovery, which we didn't even mention out of the buckets of reasons why
Mhm.
we do strength train during the season. We do work out during the season, the in season.
Yeah, that's so true. But I think for a lot of people, it's almost counterintuitive. Well, how
Mhm.
does lifting in the gym facilitate recovery? But just to put it simply, it's still helping players to build capacity, build tissue tolerance to that sport specific load in
Mhm.
practices and games. We're not, like Dave said, we're not one rep, three rep maxing all the time in season. We're doing maybe like easy intensity, maybe more moderate intensity one day while
Mhm.
still keeping reps low. And, honestly, I'm a huge fan of doing a lower body lift the day after a hard practice, but a very sub max, like just get them moving, make sure technique is great. If you're doing a split squat at moderate weight, and they have several reps left in the tank, that's still great as recovery. It's better than going for a jog for sure because there's no like hard impact on the joint. So
Mhm.
I think sometimes people are like, well, how can lifts be recovery?
Right, because the paradigm is I have to get in a squat rack and I have to lift, as much as I possibly can. I mean, it's not the truth. And
Hmm.
I came from that world. I've been doing this for over 3 decades, and it was like everyone did kind of bodybuilding workouts. On leg day, you never left without like dragging your feet because you were so fatigued you could barely drive home.
Right.
You never didn't do that. It was always that way. But we've come a long way with research and science and the way that exercise affects the human body. We didn't even get into the science of why lifting helps. We could talk about fascia, the connective tissue in your body. We could talk about lymph and lymph flow. There's so many reasons, you guys. It's just, I hope you're getting this point. It's super, super important.
Yeah, and I always tell my girls if you don't stimulate your muscles with barbells, dumbbells in the gym, if you don't use it, you lose it. And
Hmm.
just kind of coming back to what we said earlier, the muscles atrophy very fast when there's a cessation in strength training.
Hmm.
And the biggest recipe for disaster is your sport specific load keeps going up and up and up. And then if you're not strength training in season, your muscle strength keeps going down, down, and down, and less likely to be able to tolerate that increasing load. I think like that's the simplest way I can put it. And I've had a lot of girls who have continued strength training in season and they're never sore. They're never fatigued. They feel like they're getting stronger. They're building a robust body composition. They're like, wow, like I still have like triceps and biceps and quads. And like that's building confidence for girls too, because they know they're strong, they know they're capable. And then on the other end of it, and I'm curious to hear some of your athlete stories. On the other end of it, I've had some girls who will only do the summer training for 2 months. Then I'll see them 10 months later,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you withered away. And they even say so themselves. They're like, "Erica, I lost so much strength. Like I don't feel like as in shape as when I left the summer off-season program." Like I had a girl go to college last year and it was at a junior college. They didn't have a strength coach, which was a whole other story,
Mhm.
but she didn't continue like a strength and conditioning plan for those 10 months. And when she came back to summer, she's like, "I feel so weak." And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it sucks you didn't have that, but there
Mhm.
had to be some stimulus going on during that time so you didn't lose all of the hard-earned muscle you worked for in the off season. It's like, why train so hard in the off season, get up for early mornings, get to the gym with your strength coach only to stop and then see them 10 months later? Like it just doesn't make sense to me, but and we'll go through ways how to fit this all in. I know schedules are busy. I know there's budgeting issues, but there's easy and also budget friendly ways to continue this. And we'll go over that soon. But do you have any athlete stories of girls who continued in season? What did you notice? And then girls who stopped and what did you notice?
Yeah, just there's a million.
Yeah.
Uh, because it's every in season, right? And it's I train athletes, mostly soccer, but I have winter sport athletes, spring sport athletes, so it's every season I have out of sport and in sport at the same time. The commonalities, you guys, are this. And for one, I said this before, numbers don't lie. So the kids that train with me, they do all the right things. They dial in everything for the summer. And then if I'm lucky, oh, I'll be back in November. And then, well, winter break, so I'll be back in January. Oh, club is starting, so maybe April vacation, or oh, and it ends up being next summer. When they get back in with me, like I keep all of our program cards. Every single one of my clients has a binder, and we just keep everything. And many times I have to have like confidence and positivity talks with them because they're so down on themselves because their numbers are so low when they start back up again. The numbers don't lie. They are not as strong. They have gotten weaker. Those stories are just so abundant. On the other side of that, the other bookend is the kids that train all year long. It's this up, up, up. The numbers don't lie. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to warm up with 65 pounds. Now I throw 135 on there and it's like a three." That takes years, you guys. But and then worst case scenarios, I'll either get them back sometime during the season or early off season because they got injured.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah.
there's not a direct, like, if you don't strength train, you're going to get hurt, but the likelihood of you getting injured goes way up. And by and large, the kids that we train that strength train year round, including in season, stay healthy. Barring the I just had this conversation with you, I think. I helped a guy through a really severe stress induced lower back injury. It wasn't trauma. And so happy for him, got through it. And pre second day of preseason had a displaced fracture of his big toe. Like you can't prevent that kind of stuff. He got
Hard one.
stomped on. Like you just that happens. Um that stuff we can't prevent, you guys, and that's why I'm a big proponent of not saying injury prevention
Mm.
ever. Like it's injury reduction.
But Steve, that's a tough one because that was a hard contact
Right.
injury.
We can't prevent that.
Yeah, we can't, but yeah, I would say with the non-contact stuff, we can't fully prevent it, but we can give girls a really fighting chance, and
Mhm.
too often I see girls who don't continue in season, they get these, like, minor tweaks, like hamstring strains,
Hip
quad
flexor.
pulls that really shouldn't be happening often, especially
Mhm.
in teenage girls. So that is such a weakness issue, and I think we can really reduce those much more.
I agree. It's tough for us to use metrics to give people hard numbers. Like if you strength train, you're 89%, not absolutely not. We can't guarantee everything, and that's my whole point. There's a lot, it's preventative in nature, but what you just said is the soft tissue injuries that happen, those little tweaks, they're so abundant with the kids that don't train throughout the season. The kids that do, by and large, just it doesn't happen.
I've never seen it with girls who train with me
Right.
year-round, and
Right.
I can confidently say that,
Yep.
and I also was just looking at just my athlete roster over the years and girls who did strength train 1 to 2 times a week at a minimum the full year, fall soccer season, winter ECNL
Mhm.
season, spring soccer season. No ACL injuries for my athletes who did the full year and didn't take off from 3 months from me even.
Mhm.
So, I think that track record's pretty darn good. I'm not saying that,
I'd
it
say so.
never will occur, knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't, but there's
Mhm.
something about doing it consistently, stimulating the muscle, not just maintaining like Dave said, but keep building. It's compound interest. Even if
Mhm.
you're a one time a weeker, I've changed my mind on this because I've seen great things happen with one time a week. Even if you're one time a weeker for several months, I would rather that than you be someone who trains 4 times a week in the off season and doesn't even see me. So
Mhm.
the one time a week compounds so much over time if you do it for the length of the 10-month season. And then maybe some months you can up it to 2 times. Even better, you can make faster gains, but the one time a week, I think it's enough of a dose to keep slowly building over time and putting money in the strength piggy bank. That's kinda how I see it.
I love that you put it that way. 'Cause I was thinking about how to phrase this before we came on because it's true. 10 sessions. That's 10 sessions you wouldn't have had. But it's cumulative. You can't do once a week for 2 weeks,
Right,
right? It's
right.
cumulative, and I would much rather have that than none at all. You guys, there's optimal and then there's realistic, and everybody's situation is different, right? And we understand also that you have schedules outside of the game. So we understand that in season is crazy for a scheduling standpoint with school, homework, any social life that you're trying to have outside of that, um, family life, like it's just such a busy time, but it's critical you get in at least one. I'm like you, I push for two,
Yeah.
I'll take one.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like if it's a light week, let's do two or three. If it's a light week soccer wise, oh, hey, coach gave us tomorrow off. Great. Come on in. We're going to work on your mobility, some tissue work, some light load lifting. We're going to get you back on track. And it adds up. It adds up. And I like the piggy bank analogy because, people are like, oh, I don't make enough to save. And I've heard this so many times and it's so true. Can you save $5 a month, like automatic transfer into a savings account? Yeah, it's nothing if it's just $5 once. It's like that barely gets me to Starbucks and out, right? But if I do that for a year, now I've accumulated some money in there. If I do that for years and it's accruing interest, then it really starts to add up. And it's the same thing with training. A one session, can we make a difference? Not one that's permanent.
Mhm. Yeah.
Not it won't have nearly any permanence because if we just look at the way the human body moves, and if Erica and I have an athlete in season for one, and they have really say a tight right hip flexor, they're a righty and they're a forward, so they're shooting mostly with the right foot. By the time they walk out the door, they'll be in less discomfort, they'll move more freely, and their mechanics will be better. They're gonna wake up the next morning, and most of it, honestly, would be gone. In
Exactly.
terms of a brain to body connection, having it be permanent enough to make a difference when they get on the field the next day, 2 days later, throughout the week. So, at least once a week, we're accumulating money in the piggy bank, especially if they've done their off-season training leading up. That's where it would really have the most impact. Um, but I've changed this paradigm with myself as well. Early in my career, I was like, nope, I'll only take kids 3 to 4 days a week,
Yeah, same.
ever.
Yeah.
Right? In off season, no, it's four minimum.
Mhm.
There's optimal and there's realistic. And I'd rather have a kid for 52 weeks out of the year, give or take, obviously, say 48 weeks out of the year, twice a week consistently. You can get a lot done. Most of my athletes now are twice a week because I know they'll be consistent with it. And then in the in season, we talk about there might be a week it'll be one
Mhm.
because it's a heavy week. Next week, let's get back to two. I'm really glad you brought up the once a week. You guys, something is better than nothing consistently.
Mm.
You have to do something.
And Dave, even just expanding on the strength piece of 1 time a week, I've seen great strength gains happen with that model when it's done over a long period of time. But even just once a week of that speed stimulus, I mean, if you're training speed every 7 days, that's ideal. And there's a lot of research around this. I've had UNC women's soccer sports scientist Elena Cantu on, and she talks about how every 7 days they're doing some form of speed work, whether it's mechanics or those like 30-yard sprints, whether it's max or sub max, just to open up the legs and clean up movement. Like if you're doing that once a week, every 7 days, over a long period of time, you are going to surpass people on your team. Everyone's going to be slowing down because they're not getting better at speed while you're the one who is getting ahead. And I've seen that too. Like just once a week speed has been incredible. And those girls also stay very healthy as well.
They do, and it also affects them metabolically.
Yes.
And from a neurological standpoint, you stimulate that central nervous system. It's so excited when they're sprinting. And then, they're still gonna have that excitement because they're in season, but you're just putting fuel on the fire. And metabolically, they only need that one hard one. Even Tony Holler would talk about that, and he's a world-class sprint coach. His athletes, he only pushes them metabolically, like, really once a week, and these are world-class track athletes, so for soccer, definitely any sport, like, yeah, are you guys getting the hint? Once a week minimum during the season.
Yeah. And I think that's a very actionable solution for a lot of people. I think the one time a week makes everyone feel a little bit more comfortable. Okay, yeah, we can maybe fit this in right before practice on a practice day. That's another thing I would say. I would prefer you do this on a practice day if you can, just to make those training days, and
Mhm.
then take maybe your Saturday or Friday off, your 1 day a week off, or 2 days a week off if you don't have 2 games on the weekend. Too often I see players, like, just on their, like, complete off days, their one only day off a week, they're scheduling a strength session, which I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I'm a big proponent, you know this, of if you've earned it, you should be resting more than anyone else. And I get it from, "Oh, I got a driver there, it's another thing to go to." If it could be on a practice day, even the day after a game, I
Yes.
would much more I prefer that much more than if they know they're gonna have Friday or Saturday off, coach is giving it off. Take a full day off,
Yeah.
like, off.
Yeah, Dave, I'm glad you brought up, like, 1 day before the game. You should not be really lifting a lot that
Right,
day,
right,
like, it should be
right.
like a technical prep day or
Mhm.
rest day,
Right, and
and
this
I'm
also goes into, Eric and I talked about intensity, the rate of perceived exertion. The last thing a professional strength training coach wants is for you to be recovering from their workout with you during a game.
right.
We are
Yeah.
doing this so that you are at a little peak for every single game. You're going to peak, come down, peak, come down. Over the course of the year, you peak and then you've going to have all these little peaks, but you're on a downturn because your body needs a full recovery, like a cycle of recovery. You can't, no athlete, I don't care, household names, no athlete stays at a peak for 12 months a year.
Mm,
They're trying to peak. The greatest ever always peak during playoffs,
yeah, I
right?
love it.
So I'm glad you said that because the last thing that you want is to be recovering from any workout, the day of a game or during a game, and that's I get so upset for athletes when they're like, "Oh yeah, our coach ran us so hard, and then we had a game the next day." I was like, "Why?
Or I
What are
went
you
to a
doing?"
private skills training on a Friday the day before a game. I'm like, "Why are you doing added skills training in season? You're with your ECNL team 4 times a week, like,
Mhm.
what are you doing?"
Right, right, yep,
So, and I like that you brought up that it's actually a good idea to sometimes lift the day after a game. So I'm a huge fan of Monday workouts as well. So I have a lot of people coming in on Mondays now, and we'll do
mhm,
our low rep, our low intensity strength work. It's not like we're crushing legs, but we'll do maybe one big leg lift and then move on. And yeah, I would say the further away from games you can get, like a
yeah,
Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday is a great time to train as well. And then,
mhm,
if you go in on a Thursday, it could just be like an upper body explosive or quick acceleration kind of primer workout, and then take off Friday or Saturday.
yeah,
So I think the further away from a game you can do your in season workouts, the better.
100%. I'm so glad that you said that because intuitively it's reversed. Oh, I should work out the day before because I'm fresh,
Right.
right? But now you're recovering during the game from your workout. When
Right.
you have a game and you work out the next day, you're helping the recovery from the game while you're still improving,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then what happens in Erica's scenario, then you have like a practice day, regular team practice, and then maybe a day off. the next day after that day off, you are gonna feel like $1,000,000. You're like, "I'm ready to play again."
Yeah.
But if the timing is off, you're in this constant vortex of, "I'm just always tired," so it's the timing of it is as important as what you're doing. Here's an extreme example. These are professional elite athletes. NHL players strength train within an hour or two after their games, sometimes at 1 in the morning, because they'll have like a 7 p.m. game,
Mhm.
right? Say they're all done with everything, media relations by like 11 or so. They eat and they're literally working out at 1. Why? Because they have a game the next night or the night after that, and that gives them the most time to recover. And you
Work
would
days are
think
work
like,
days.
"What? How can they lift, like, after they play hockey that's so intense?" Yeah, right? It helps them recover, it keeps them strong, it keeps them improving throughout the season. That's an extreme example. I don't want any of you, like, getting home and then driving to your local gym to work out right after a game. These are physically mature athletes at the most elite level that but I'm just trying to prove our point. Timing is everything.
Yeah. So I do wanna come to that with elite, so, like, college, pro level, they
Mhm.
all in-season strength train everyone, so it's also us preparing high school girls for that expectation and that responsibility. I tell my girls all the time, when you have a strength coach in college, you're lifting 1 to 2 times a week in season with them, so
Mhm.
you gotta get used to this habit here. And I had a player from Hopkins on my podcast a year ago, and she said something similar about strength training right after a game. They would have games on Sundays, or sorry, Fridays and Sundays, and then strength train on a Monday the next day. So right after, it was almost like a recovery workout. They just hit each muscle group sub max and then moved on. And then Tuesday was kind of like a lighter walk through practice. So still kind of recovering. And then Wednesday, they started ramping it up again. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of that model of doing it right after a game, the day after. It doesn't always have to be, oh, just plop on a couch and you're off. If someone's battery is completely low, and they're so sore they can't walk and they're limping, then yeah, we probably won't be lifting some heavy weight the next day. But Dave, I think there's something to it, facilitating the recovery process the day after if it's done properly.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had many athletes that, have come in with kind of a slight limp. And I'd say, "Erica, are you okay? What's going on? Did you get hurt in your game yesterday or, on Friday?" "No, my legs are so sore." But after we've gone through some tissue quality work, we've gone through some mobility work, we've gone through some general prep and dynamic warm up, and she started to loosen up. We do that sub max first set, and she's like, "All right, I'm feeling better." Right? It's
There you
just
go.
counterintuitive because we're just so used to all or none, all or none, right?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that trend is getting worse, and there's a generation of younger athletes where, if this is another subject but it pertains to what we're talking about, if they're not playing in a practice or a game, they're in their room on their phones for hours and hours. It's literally all or none.
And that's worse recovery. You're better off doing
There's
like
no
a weighted
recovery.
deadlift
Right.
instead of
Mhm.
that. Like, if you are in your bed on your phone, the stress response in your body is high and you can't recover quicker. But if you're in the gym with your
Mhm.
strength coach, you're laughing and then you're doing your lifts, you're moving, you're getting rid of that waste in your muscles, that's better for you than plopping on a couch and being on your phone.
Right, right, exactly, and you're not getting rid of that waste in your muscles, and
Exactly.
I would also
And getting
argue that
weaker. You're getting weaker.
they're getting weaker, and those muscles are healing in an unnatural positions as it pertains to athletics. Like you might be in the fetal position or lying down, and they're healing, and they need to heal through movement so they can. Your body was made to move, not to lie dormant for anywhere from 2 to 6 hours playing video games. So that is probably the worst thing you could do when you're sore. And I know it's counterintuitive, like I'm tired, I'm sore. And a lot of moms and dads too, like, don't do this. I'm talking to you. This is tough love. They need to get up and moving. Like, oh, it's okay. I know, but he was really sore. They need to get up and move. They need to get up and move. So that's really, really important. You'll be a better parent for making them get up and move than just curtailing to, it's okay, you're sore. Let me know if you need anything. So especially high school athletes, they need to work this soreness out and continue to improve so that they don't start spiraling down. It, and you can't blame not being successful on anyone but yourself if that's what you're doing. I go to practice, come home, don't do anything. Go to my games, come home, don't do anything.
So, as far as any other solutions, just to wrap this up, so we've talked about the 1 time a week model. If you can get in on that, compound that over time, and do so consistently, you'll make some great gains. I think it's a more realistic schedule for a lot of people, especially people who practice 4 times a week, which a lot of girls do nowadays. But any other solutions? I mean, there's remote training that's an option for people now, hybrid type training where you're remote, part in person. I mean, there's options out there, everyone. There's options to make this happen. Anything else, Dave?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Here's the difficult part is who to trust
Mm,
and where to get your programming from. Because yes, like in an ideal situation, I send my daughter to Erica twice a week in season, right? Or okay, what's the next level from that? She sees Erica once a week, and the other it's hybrid. The other one she does at home, and that way Erica can check in with her. Like she has that program set up. Um, Next step down from there, it's completely remote. I have 3 other kids. I can't get her to Erica, but I know she needs to strength train. Erica sets her up on a quality program that she can monitor with with my daughter, right? Next step down from there is it's a program that Erica has written out, and we're just trusting that she's going to be able to do it safely and effectively. Like, I have a 6-week program that I sell, right? For those extreme situations where, and it's through an app, I can see what they're doing. I can give them feedback, whether they want it or not. I can check in with them, and I don't push it because in person's better. But being connected to somebody who knows what they're doing would be, in my opinion, the very first thing to do, and then figure out the options from there. But if you don't live in Tampa or you don't live in Boston, we do have some things that you could look at to get what you need, or at least close to it. The important thing is to start, and I used this phrase earlier. There's optimal. Optimal is my daughter goes to Tampa and sees Erica twice a week. And then there's realistic. What can we do on a consistent basis? And once you figure that out, you're off and running, and then you can grow from there.
awesome. Well, this has been so fun, Dave. I love talking about in season training because, as you guys have heard in this podcast, it is so critical for our girls to stay healthy, but to continue to perform at a high level with their speed and with their strength. So, Dave, this was awesome. I will leave all of your links in the caption below. So, if you want to work with Dave remotely, if you're in the middle of nowhere and there's no strength coach around you, find someone remotely. I've seen this situation a lot where people who are in towns, they just don't have performance facilities. So, and they want to continue to train. So, remote is an option for everyone. Just make sure you're working with the right person. And then for the players, communicate with your strength coach in season. Are you showing up energized for the workout, or are your legs completely crushed from the beep test? Like, communicate, because the strength coach should adjust on the fly even if they had a plan in place. So that's also important too. And parents, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Find someone where your kid is in good hands with proper sets and reps and exercise selection. And yeah, just do what works for your schedule. So the one time a week, I absolutely recommend for people who are drowning and completely overwhelmed. So there are options out there.
Couldn't have said it better. That's so great. Thank you guys for listening. Take this information to heart, and if you aren't already doing something, it's not too late. Start.
Boom. All right, guys. Thank you. And I will see you on the next episode.